Okay, everybody, maybe we'll get started. I'm sure that there must have been some questions that occurred to you. It's been a while now, when we went to Pesach, and now is a very significant time. I wanted to discuss a little bit, because right after Pesach, initially you have the Yoms. You know what I mean by the Yoms. You have like 3 major Yoms.
The Yomer.
Well, the Yomer is a mitzvah. That's a separate thing. That's, by the way, that is the longest running mitzvah in the Torah. 49 days. You got every day. Hope everybody's up to par. I have a list. The OU booklet. There's a list every day, and I underline so I know.
I got the same way.
There is an application.
Yeah, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I like the old physical stuff.
I actually have a little box. Box that's about 100 years old. You turn it.
Rabbi, this is for you.
I'll take some. All right, thank you very much. L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim.
You want coffee?
No, thanks. Just plain water is good. So, you have these spheres home, but I'm talking about modern. It might be called modern. It's not. For example, this Wednesday, Thursday, I think, is Yom HaAtzmaut. Are you familiar? You people living in this country or what?
It actually starts tonight.
No, Yom HaAtzmaut does not start tonight.
Something starts tonight.
Yom HaZikaron.
That's why there's 3. Let me. I was going over this morning. And actually, there's 3 Yoms, 3 days, one after the other. It started out last week. I think it was Thursday. Was Yom HaShoah. Okay, and all of a sudden at 10 o'clock, I think it's 10 o'clock. Yeah, 10 o'clock. All of a sudden, the alarm goes off, and everybody.
Simon.
I used the wrong word. I'm sorry. The alarm, the siren, whatever you want. Ezaka. The word bibrit is the ezaka. Everybody's supposed to stop. That's a very moving sight. Have you ever been, like in traffic? If you're in traffic, you're supposed to stop.
I purposely went outside on King George, and it's amazing.
Yeah, did everybody
I've
stop?
seen in television.
Yes.
Almost.
My question is,
The Arabs, though.
who didn't stop? Yeah, did the Arabs
Obviously
stop?
not. Why would they?
Used
They
to
want
be
the whole country.
Unfortunately, it used to be a lot of the parade didn't stop.
That's also terrible.
Do they do it now?
They're anti-Zionists.
Do they do it now, Manish?
The Shoah,
Some of
excuse
them
me,
do.
Yom HaShoah has nothing to do with Zionism. Yom HaShoah, what does that have to do with Zionism?
The problem is tomorrow.
Hold on a second, let's go down.
Right.
I was at a place where we went to a hotel. My wife was very tired after a lot of preparation for Pesach. We had a lot of guests. So we went away to Eilat for a couple of days. The place that we were staying at, there were a lot of Arabs in the place. And these aren't poor Arabs, because it's not, these are very...
Hotels were not cheap.
And the children are dressed nice, but they seem to be different because, first of all, I noticed that they're eating. It's Ramadan. Ramadan, they're supposed to be fasting. And I noticed some of them were drinking booze. Now, so my wife and I were talking about this. I said, look, maybe not all Arabs are from. You have a lot of Jews that eat on Tisha B'Av, they're not from. Maybe they're just not from. Okay? Also, I noticed that the women, not all of them had the hair covered, but those that did had a totally different kind of hair covering. Over here, it's like black and everything is, you just barely see the face. There, they had like a shawl, sort of a white linen kind of a shawl. So what's the story? What's the pshat? And they did stand. They did stand for the siren. What's the pshat? And the day we left, we were asking the guy in the hotel, he said they're Druzim.
Druze.
They're Druze.
So Jews fighting.
They come from Yitro.
Yeah, that's the story. They come from See, Druze are different. Druze are loyal to the state. Their sons, they serve in the army. So that's a whole different kettle of fish, as they say.
They're major officers.
Yeah, that I don't mind. See, I think I think the whole problem with the Arab, the way they set it up and gave them so much rights, and I think it's not good.
Not good.
I don't think it's a good thing at all. But I don't mind. I'm not saying no Arab should be able to live here and have rights if he's loyal to the state. You can't live in a country and get all the benefits of the country, and you're dedicated to destroy it. Let these guys in the Knesset.
And then they go into the Knesset.
They go to the Knesset.
And it's illegal according to the...
What kind of a country? What kind of a country would allow? I'll give you a place in our government. I'll give you a place in our government, so from there you can agitate to destroy the country. Well, that's like insanity.
It is insane.
So, I mean, I can't, why? What kind of a weakness is that they can allow? I wouldn't, I wouldn't even citizenship.
I know why that happens.
Good.
Because we're too compassionate to people. And we should not be.
Well, that could be, but see, there's a very good point you're making. You see, because Chazal were very careful about that. And they said that there are certain people that it's usher, it's prohibited to have mercy on them, to be marachim. You know the famous statement, Kol ha-marachim al-achzar, whoever shows mercy to the cruel people,
Cruelty.
Sofo liot achzar al Rabbi Kahane used to quote that pasuk. Sofo liot achzar al rachmanim. In the end, he's going to be cruel to the innocent. So that you see that's a very subtle. I think the reason that the Israel does it. I think that's a very big weakness. They have this notion that they must get the approval of the world, not because they keep the Torah, not because they're the nation of Torah, but because they're liberals. Israel strives to be the most liberal in terms of, for example, gay rights. In terms of gay rights, the gays, etc., the best place to be. What's the best place in the world for a gay?
Tel Aviv.
Tel Aviv, more than San Francisco. I read that once.
And they advertise it.
I read that one. In San Francisco, okay, but you're restricted to certain places, you know, so where you can
Gay
go.
capital of the world, Tel Aviv.
Here. So
June, they'll take over Jerusalem.
the gay pride parade in Jerusalem is to me that's very disturbing.
Yeah, you
That's
know,
what- Go ahead.
it's very disturbing. But one time with my wife's, and we were coming back home, and unfortunately they had this little circus, the parade that Hanoch was talking about. So we had to show ID to that deal that we live in this neighborhood.
You can't cross the street.
You have to show ID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's very disturbing to me.
And what's the purpose when
Because-
they have won to do anything they want, anywhere they want, with whomever they won? What is the damn purpose of having this parade?
Okay, all right, it's one thing you have your rights here. Nobody's going to Nobody's going to interfere with the rights. But why do you have to interfere with the holiness of Yerushalayim? What do you have to do that for? What about our rights? This is our city. It's a holy place. So you don't display things.
Our rights are secondary.
You don't display things. You don't want, excuse my finish. You don't want others to tell you how to live your life. All right, we don't have a Torah society today. We're not going to persecute you. Okay, fine. You can have your freedom. But what about your respecting the rights of the Yerushalayim is the place of the Beis HaMikdash. And you display things like this, which is a sheer desecration.
2 years ago, on King George, in front of the Great Synagogue, they had one of their flags,
Yeah.
and they had up and down the whole block here.
Yeah.
And all the people protested. So last year, they didn't have the flags here. Now I'm hoping...
Good. You have to protest. I think it's very important.
Well, let's do something.
You
What do
can't
think we
stand
can do?
idly
We have
by.
till June.
What?
Let's do something to protest.
When?
This class.
Okay, what do you want to do? You give me. I'm a teacher. I'm a Rebbe. I don't really. I'm not out there. I'll have to give a speech.
Well, let's do something as a class. It's very fitting.
Okay, you've come up
We
with
should have
something.
the class in front of them.
When is the time?
June. I don't know the exact.
So we have time to think of something. You got to think of something. Do it seichel. Rabbi Kahane always said, just do it with seichel. Don't do crazy stuff. Just to protest. He said the Jewish fist and the Jewish brain. Okay, you have to do things with. So we'll think about it. That'll be the
Very
assignment.
important.
That'll be the assignment. What exactly? How can we do something that's meaningful? We don't want to be crazy, because if we act crazy, you're hurting the cause.
Let's make
Then
a
no
giant
point.
flag and put it out front.
Yeah, kedushas. Please respect the kedusha of Yerushalayim.
And,
Rabbi.
but the question is, will that help?
Well, it'll get a message.
It helps us.
I'm not the only one that feels this way. A lot of ordinary people on the street, when I walk by, they feel the same way.
Rabbi,
It's just not appropriate. Good.
We have a lot of gifts. I talked to a guy who lives in Adam last week.
A lot of what?
He lives in Adam. Adam's outside, Adam, the settlement.
Ah,
What do you
okay.
mean? You go through Pisgat Zev, first settlement you come to is Adam. So Adam, he was driving last week, Arabs threw rocks, smashed his windshield. So he went to the police. The government has a situation set up where they'll pay for your windshield. So they asked him, he showed them, he said, look what they did, this happened last week. He said, okay, did you have Israeli flags on your car? He goes, yes, of course I did. He said, well then, we won't pay for it. You provoked them to do that.
Wow, that's ridiculous.
The police said this. the police.
Yeah.
So don't go to the police, think you're gonna get any help.
Look what happened in Lowell. The police wouldn't come out for anyone. What we should do is, when we find an Arab, like we just killed this young security officer, we should destroy their mosques. That would do something.
Also, there's another thing that could
Just
go.
destroy
Throw them
them.
out, throw all their families
They'll
out of
turn
the
around and
country.
destroy
This is a
synagogues. What's the big deal? Then what's the
Throw
big
their families out of the
But we
country.
have the power.
deal? Yeah.
He doesn't agree with you, Mayor. Yaakov Mayor doesn't
That's
agree with you.
ridiculous.
To
They didn't
destroy
pay for
the
that.
Jewish God is
This is Israel.
It's his fault.
Hilul
It
Hashem.
wasn't his right. It was
I
the
didn't
Arabs'
translate
fault.
Hilul Hashem.
And I was-
Desecration of God's name.
He's not saying, what are you?
He says you're not allowed
It's
to
only
look
the
at it.
Jewish God, not the Arab God.
No, it's the
That's
same
right.
God.
Same
For
God.
Rambam, it's the
It's
same.
not.
It is. For Rambam, it is the same God.
They think Allah's the greatest prophet. Are we praying to the same God?
No, not all.
Yes,
It would be
not the same
Muhammad.
prophet, the same God.
Muhammad, thank you.
I think, you know what I think is very, very significant? Because lately, all the battles have come over the Har Bayis, the Temple Mount. And they have been waging a battle for
And
the
they're
Temple.
wrong.
And they're saying that any Jew that goes to the Temple, it's a provocation. That's their whole thing. It's a provocation.
You believe it's provocation.
If they don't like something, they're using a certain method now. If they don't like something, even if, what's the
May I
provocation?
say a word?
What? Good.
Lehavdil, from their point of view, is like somebody then would go in the Kodesh HaKodeshim. In the Kodesh HaKodeshim, we couldn't go. Only the Kohen Gadol could go on Yom Kippur.
Right.
From their point of view, if I'm not saying they are right, but you must understand their thinking. Some of them it's political, but some of them is religious.
But 1 second, listen to me carefully. They're not willing to say we have claims to it, whatever their claims are, and they understand the Jews. The Jews built the base of MIDRASH. That's the whole essence of the place, is because they deny. They say Jews have no right to go there, no right. Not only that, they say Jews have no history there. They're trying to deny the entire Canaan.
They're thieves of history.
How can Israel give in to something like that? We could say, the thing is, see, I think I mentioned it. See, I think Dayan made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Huge mistake. One of the worst historical mistakes. Because Har Bayit B'Yadenu, Har Bayit, my wife bumped into somebody last night shopping. And so this woman is looking at her, and she says, "Are you Linda?" My wife's maiden name is Jacob. "Are you Linda?" Yeah. Turns out they went to school together. In the 9th grade, they went to school together. And the year was 1967. And she said, this woman has written stories. She remembers that my wife ran into the room and yelled, Har Bayit B'Yadenu. She ran into the room. My wife didn't remember the event. This woman has written stories about that. And finally they reunited. They bumped into each other. So that's what happened. It's the worst thing. You can't give up. By giving up, you're showing that he was admitting it's not ours. It doesn't belong to us. It belongs to you. He's admitting to that. He gave it over to the Arab Muslim, to the Muslim religious authority. And they're the ones that determine who can go and when you can go. Of course, they said, his idea was
He was anti-Torah. He gave away everything.
that they would appreciate this, that this would lead to, it hasn't led to any cooperation. I really think it's necessary. The Jews have to take back the Temple Mount. Not to keep them, give them times like they did in Hebron. Like in Hebron. And it's not right. Why should Arabs have the right to pray there? And Jews can't pray there?
You can't win a war.
This is the holiest. This is holy. By the way, the Kotel is not holy like the Har Bayis. They made the Kotel into the place. The Kotel is a wall that was built by Herod.
They say
Okay.
Ishmael was the sacrifice.
Yeah, I understand that. So all the Jews went crazy over the Kotel.
Yeah, the Kotel is a piece,
If I was
the
my
holy
minister,
place is.
Exactly. It's not true. It's not true that the Kotel, if for some reason everybody bought into that, and everybody has to have their bar mitzvah there, and they make that, that was the Arabs. That's what the Arabs want. They want even that they throw stones at the Kotel too. But they can't get away with this. They brought up stones and rocks. They defile it. If it's your holy place, why are you defiling it with rocks? The law should be there's no politics on the Har Bayit. Anybody that gives political speeches will not be permitted to come there. And certainly you can't store up rocks and use it as a base. They're using it. That's part of their... And if Israel gives in, it's giving in to terrorism.
Repeatedly.
If they give in to this, see, they can't... Israel claim, oh, we never negotiate with terrorists. We don't give in. You do give in. If you restrict Jews from going up there to pray, only because you're afraid they'll regard it as a provocation, you're giving them power over over Jewish rights. So that's because of terrorism. You're giving in to terrorism. So I think that's a very significant limud. That's a very significant lesson.
Shame on Israel for doing this.
Now let's talk a little bit about those 3 yoms. The first yom we said was Yom HaShoah. What's the connection between the different yoms? First yom was Yom HaShoah, which we observed. Okay.
You should go all the way, sit in the corner there.
It'll cool up.
That's nice. You get a little breeze now, right? Why you?
Rabbi's happy.
Oh, you will. You're not going to be happy sitting there. You're not going to feel it. What is that?
So what do you think you should do?
You should sit right under it. He should sit under it.
Oh, okay. Anyways. So you had the Yom HaShoah. And, see, it's interesting. I was telling someone. See, Yom HaShoah, there's always things that, see, did the Germans really, were they made to pay the price for what they did? When did they get away with murder?
Probably.
They all went to Latin America with the help of the Vatican.
See, in my,
Iceland.
one guy,
Quite a few in that world.
and the world, do you remember the outcry?
Huh?
Not nearly.
When they captured Eichmann, I remember it, I read the books, and I remember the thing. The world condemned Israel. The world condemned Israel because it was a violation of Argentinian air. They came along. This was the problem.
Right.
The fact that this guy was responsible for $6 million. No, that's not. The fact that Israel violates that became the big thing. And that's just one person. That's just one person. But how many thousands and thousands of Nazis that were actively involved in running the camps, in the ghettos? Look,
South America.
it's another reason also, like I'm not that sympathetic to Ukraine. They don't have a good record, Ukraine. The way they treated the Jews,
Oh.
they were the most avid. They were very enthusiastic helpers of the Nazis, with the Einsatzgruppen and all of that. So,
They're still like that.
did anybody watch they had these
They still
ceremonies?
have a whole Nazi region in.
Yeah. They
Argentina.
take care.
Not in
The last 20 things that came to the United Nations,
Yeah.
they voted against Israel.
They vote against Israel.
Big time.
But in terms of the responsibility of the world to set an example and to deal with the crimes and to punish them, remotely in an adequate,
They hate us.
complete
They're
failure,
complicit.
total failure. Now, let me ask you a question. Did anybody watch
No.
the Teches? You know what the Teches is? This is the ceremony.
Right, yeah.
So there was a very moving stuff. There was a ceremony at Yad Vashem on Wednesday night, on the night
Right.
of the show. Did you get to see it?
I saw it.
Okay, I saw it too. I saw parts of it. It was very, very well done.
And this
Herzog.
time they had a commentator was translating everything into English, which was very good.
Yes. It was meaningful. The lighting of the 6 torches, and each person is a survivor who participates. But and then, see, my question is like this: who was there? Who wasn't there? Who wasn't? Now, I was interesting. Who was there from Germany? Germany has to say. They're the ones that have. So the Jews, of course, we have to observe Yom HaShoah. But what about the rest of the world? The Goyim have to have a Yom HaShoah to remember what the anti-Semitism leads to remember the crime. So the president of the German Bundestag, you know what the Bundestag is? That's their Congress, Parliament, yes. A woman, she was there representing Germany, which I thought is good, but I wasn't even satisfied. No, what do they have now? They have a president, they have a prime minister, I'm not sure what.
Prime Minister.
A prime minister. The prime minister should have been there. Because if they're truly repentant, if they really committed to never again and so on and so forth, they're the ones that have to be there.
But you know what Yad Vashem
What about
done? There was a picture of the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem with Hitler
Right,
And they're talking,
right.
and they took down the picture.
Why? Because it offends. It's a provocation. See, anything that Israel does to affirm the truth becomes a provocation, and then they back down.
Anybody who calls themselves a Palestinian is a fascist, because he's the founder. That's what we have to understand.
Let me ask you another question. Who are the ones that have been labeling Israel apartheid? What's that, right?
BDS.
The BDS.
Yeah, but they're right, there's an international...
Boycott Nations and sanctions.
Amnesty International.
I would have loved to have had an opportunity to speak. I've given speeches, over many places. I would have loved, and I would say, where is the head of this, I forget the human rights organization, where's the head of the UN? Is the UN committed to never again? Is the UN committed to fighting against Holocaust denial? Shouldn't they be here? They talk a bit, what?
Gutierrez.
He was there?
He's the Secretary General.
All right, Gutierrez, I would call him out. Why are you not here? Shouldn't you be here to affirm that the UN is opposed to extermination, that the UN is opposed to Holocaust denial? You have to be, otherwise it's just talk. All the fancy talk is worthless.
Rabbi, we learned last night, we had a speaker here last night that was in Germany during Kristallnacht. He has a fantastic program, but he said,
Go ahead, I'm listening.
in 1933, when Hitler became in control of Germany, the United Nations said to, at that time it was called
League of
Nations, told him that what he was doing was against the law. So what did he do? He quit. He said, we're not going to be part of the United Nations. That's what Israel should do.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. I agree. That is a very, very significant thing, and nobody mentioned it. Who's there? Fine, we give thank you, Mr. President. But Herzog was there, and the military guys, Netanyahu was there. Thank you. You should be here. But let's tell who's not here. You see, that should have been. You're so sincere when you condemn Israel. Okay, for apartheid. What about what about genocide? Does that bother you at all? Are you committed?
No, they did not.
They did not. So then you're on the side of the Nazis. Then you're on the side of the Holocaust deniers.
Well, that's pretty obvious.
That's a very, very significant thing. Unfortunately, I wasn't asked to speak. That had I been asked to speak, it would have been something. Okay.
Oliver Bus did his PhD dissertation.
Correct, on Holocaust denial. Now you see, that's the first of the Yoms. This is all connected to Yom HaAtzmaut. I want to show the connection between it, and there's a significance over here, okay? Because we're going to be observing Yom HaAtzmaut. I show you, are you people observing Yom HaAtzmaut? Do you have special programs, Rabbi, from the Chabad here? Do they recognize it? No? So they're not on board. So where do you daven on Yom HaAtzmaut? Where do you daven?
Where I daven every day.
And there's nothing special. They say Hallel and things like that?
Yes. With brocha.
Oh boy, it's a real Zionist place.
It's not
Me
Zionist.
too. At Corina, we also have a program. But the rabbi doesn't show up.
The rabbi doesn't, because he doesn't agree, huh?
No.
Wow, it's funny. You
We
see,
have two Rabbonim. One is a follower of
Rabbi Cook?
Rabbi Soloveitchik.
Yeah, he's not opposed, right?
No, he says the brocha.
Right.
And the other one is also kind of Litvaka.
Rabbi Soloveitchik is very interesting.
And he was different from his family because
Yes.
his family was against.
Yeah, he writes a lot about that, Rabbi Soloveitchik, his development. The thing, the next Yom on the list is, I believe, Yom HaZikaron.
Yes.
Yom HaZikaron, I think, is when tomorrow, no? What's tonight?
Tonight.
Oh, tonight and tomorrow.
Tonight.
Tonight.
Well, the day begins at night, in Israel. So, what's the idea of Yom HaZikaron?
The people who died in the wars.
Yeah.
And by terrorist
The
attack.
the IDF.
The soldiers, right?
And
What is the number of...
and the victims.
And the victims of terrorism, especially since the Oslo agreements. Did anyone have an idea the number of casualties of people, of Israelis, Jews.
I think
But it's
26
16 to 17,000, I think.
No,
It's
26,000.
23,000.
About
Yeah, let me look it up.
23,700, I think.
25,
20-something
26.
It's more than the amount of people.
One too many.
But Israelis that were killed on the roads is a high number.
I'm looking for the total that there should be included. These are the karbanot, the sacrifices. Those who sacrificed their lives in the maintenance of the state of Israel. Okay? So the thing is like this. What occurs to me, see, I want to understand what's the connection between these two yoms. These two yoms are yoms of remembrance. That's, always, the Jewish calendar is permeated with Yartzeit, remembrance. Okay, that's in terms of the happy days versus the sad days kind of predominate. Yeah. So what does it show you? That in order for the Jews to achieve a state, okay, there were sacrifices that had to be paid. No, you disagree? There was a high price. They had to pay a very, very high price. That's not the fact?
This is ex post. This is ex post.
What do you mean?
You consider it from after it happened. But we cannot say the state of Israel was born because of or after the Shoah. Because the truth is it started in 1920 with San Remo,
That's a different point.
which is much before.
I'm not making that point. Don't disagree with me on a point that I'm not making. See, there are plenty of people out. This is a very controversial idea that want to say that there's a connection between the Holocaust and between the establishment of Israel.
No.
Okay, they want to say that. Okay, it's something
1917.
because why?
Balfour. But then
No, they're not saying that it started.
San Remo.
In many
Who
ways.
is the son of a bitch? It's Churchill. Because all of Eretz Israel, including part of Jordan, belong to us.
Right.
And
they wrote
Churchill said, no.
the white paper.
Yeah.
Okay, but this is what they want to say. There is no question, no.
Churchill didn't write the white paper. It wasn't Churchill.
The white paper is later.
1939.
That was to prevent Jewish immigration at the time when the Holocaust was in full.
Right.
They
full
took
blast.
away 75% of the land that was given to them.
That was for Jordan. That's what he's saying. That was Jordan. But the thing is like this. What he's
It's 23,900.
23,900.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's too many.
But what they're saying, of course, it's too many. No question about it.
23,928.
Here's the argument that's being put out there. I'm not saying it's 100% true. There might be some truth in it, and that is after the fact that as a result of the Holocaust, the Holocaust had an effect on world opinion to make the world more amenable for a short period in history. Okay, because very short. Let's make the argument that there was a tremendous feeling of guilt. After World War II, after the knowledge of the Holocaust came out, there was a tremendous feeling of guilt and a feeling that they did not fulfill their responsibility at all. So they wanted to find some way to ease their conscience. And how could you ease your conscience?
And FDR was part of this.
Yes. To ease your conscience was to vote, to be more favorable, even so it was very, very close. But that's one of the factors. I would agree. I don't know if it would have happened without the Holocaust or not. I'm not saying
I
that.
agree.
I am saying, however, that they're sort of trying to does that make the Holocaust more acceptable? Does it make it more palatable? It's true, but because of the look, we have a state of our own now. Because as a result of the Holocaust, we got to say, what's this? Explain, don't just say something. Explain.
The Balfour Declaration brought on the Jewish state. It's not World War II or the end of World War II.
No, there were many other things that had to happen. There were many, because the Arabs went back on that whole thing and they became anti the
Well, the
state.
justification
But the state
they
preceded the
gave to
war.
themselves.
What?
The state of Israel preceded World War II.
No, it wasn't established until afterward. What are you talking about? It was 1947, 1948.
But Israel was a homeland from the Jews.
But it didn't have political. We're talking, and this is very important, we're talking about political independence. An Yom HaAtzmaut means independence, correct? you're celebrating the fact, this is a great miracle, that for the first time in a few thousand years, the Jewish people had independent political control in Eretz Israel. That did not happen until 1947. There was no guarantee because of the Balfour Declaration. Look at all the different betrayals.
The Balfour
even after.
Declaration and the Treaty of Serenos was included. From the League of
Doesn't matter,
Nations, it
though.
was transferred to the United Nations.
But they went back on all of these things. The British went back on all of these things.
British
They wouldn't
did,
even
but the
allow
San
Jews to
Remo
come in.
agreement's never been rescinded by the UN.
In my,
And they're still obligated to
okay,
uphold
they're
it.
obligated. This but it shows you it means nothing, though. There can be all the laws in the world on your side, but if they're not going to be enforced, in my opinion, if no one's mentioning, a very major factor. Without that, you wouldn't have had a state. Did you ever hear of somebody called Menachem Begin? Did you ever hear of the Irgun? The Irgun launched a war. Okay, not the Stern Gang was more like more terroristic, but the Irgun attacked. They attacked the British. They made life miserable for them. They were a major. I've read the books. But Begin's book is a very good book. Bamachteret. Okay, the revolt. If you haven't read that book, you want to read a really, really fascinating book. It's called The Revolt by Menachem Begin. He was a brilliant guy, and that made
King
life.
David Hotel, look at the...
Unfortunately, a lot of Jews were killed. That went awry because they sent warnings and they didn't listen to the warnings. So unfortunately, many Jews died in that too. But more so even than the labor, than the Haganah, the Irgun launched a war, and they made life miserable for the British. The British couldn't sustain it anymore.
Finally left.
The price was too hard to pay. The price was too high to pay, and they finally gave it over, to the United Nations and a partition. Work out a partition arrangement, which the Jews accepted. When they set up the state, you have to understand this, when the Jews set up a state, they knew they're going to pay prices. They knew it. You can't say that, well, now they're acting, but we calculate everything because this could lead to a war, that could lead to, we don't want to upset them. Then why'd you establish a state? If you didn't want to have wars and fighting, you should not, everybody warned Israel. The U.S. State Department warned Israel, don't. Because everybody thinks that Truman was such a great, I think Trump was much better. Why was Truman such a great friend of Israel? He was against establishing the state. Against. He said, if you establish the state, then they're going to attack you from all sides, and we will not support you. We won't give you a single bullet. Truman.
But he voted for it.
Okay, but that by itself?
They support Israel.
He voted for them, but they didn't have one bullet. I understand that, but without guns, how are you going to sustain what you voted for?
And
You know who supplied them with weapons? Who supplied Israel with weapons?
Czechoslovakia.
What do you guys know your history?
The Brits give the arm to the Arabs.
But don't they support Israel now?
Who?
The American USA.
Oh, yeah. Why are you kidding?
Not the State Department.
I saw a History Channel about 30 years ago showing films from the period of time when Britain was getting ready to pull out of Israel, and their generals were in all the other countries training their soldiers, training them and preparing a coordinated attack. The Arabs didn't have enough sense. The British were leading it. I saw the films. I watched every bit of it.
They also give them the arm.
It's the
They
British
didn't
that
give
were
arms,
responsible
yeah.
for the 29 massacre in
Britain
in
supported the
February,
Jordanians.
for the incitement that they...
The Jordanians, for sure. You're 100%
They
right.
never would have had the power.
Oh, you're 100% right. The story of the United States,
One.
eventually, you're correct. The United States became a close ally, not just a supporter of Israel. Became mainly under Republican presidents, starting with Nixon. But
Johnson was good.
yeah, but in the 6-Day War,
Yeah, he wouldn't give the arms.
exactly.
The airplanes couldn't
In
leave.
the 6-Day War, he wasn't that supportive. He was. Yeah.
He was kissing.
Don't forget, but Johnson was bogged down in Vietnam. Timing is a big thing. Johnson was bogged down in Vietnam. So was Nixon. But Nixon said to Henry, send them. The reason why Nixon was so supportive was because he can't tolerate a defeat by the Russians. Because the Russians were on the side of the Arabs, and Israel's our ally, and we can't allow our ally to go down. He didn't do it because he loves Israel. Although, yeah, he had
Although they
admiration.
had threatened him with the atomic bomb.
Well,
Just about 99 years old.
Who?
And so did,
Wow.
during, Saddam Hussein. I think it was Ahmed Barak. Also threatened to use
He was
nuclear.
a
Who threatened?
But during the
Israel and the
1967
Mafia, yeah.
war, one of the big incidents Israel was involved with was the strafing run and bombing of the USS Liberty.
Liberty.
Now, the story with the USS Liberty, it's only come out in the last couple of years. The USS Liberty was an electronics gathering ship that was sitting off the coast of Ashdod. They were taking the data of the communications that they found coming from Israel. They were sending it to Cyprus, where the British were mapping out the locations of Israeli communications, sending those maps to Egypt, so that Egypt could then use that intelligence to target Israel. The USS Liberty became a legitimate military target for Israel because it was threatening our security.
Sounds
So
like the
we went
reverse
over
of what
and
Jonathan Pollock did.
So we went over and bombed the USS Liberty, but put it out of commission. And for 50 years, the United States claimed it was an unprovoked attack.
But I never heard about that they
Yes.
were spying for Egypt?
Yes,
I don't know, I've read a lot of stuff on that, but
Yeah. it's what's coming.
why would the United States do that?
Because
They were
they
supporting
needed,
Egypt.
they
They were
needed,
supporting
Why did they
Egypt.
let the
they
Jews in
wanted
the war
the support
too?
of Egypt so
Why did they
that
let them in?
the
wouldn't
U.S.
want
wanted
the
the
vote.
support of Egypt so that they could stall the advance of the Soviet Union into Egypt, into the Mideast.
I'm not aware of that, but
What
yeah,
about, why didn't they
Maybe
bomb
for
the
the
train
Suez
tracks?
Canal.
They knew exactly
The Suez
where the
Canal
trains
what?
were going.
It was an interest for them.
the Suez Canal, see, you're right, in the 1956, the Suez War of 56, where Israel got together with Britain. It's crazy what happens in history. Britain and France, in order against Egypt, and they conquered the whole Sinai. Israel conquered the whole Sinai and the Suez Canal, and guess who kicked them out? Who forced Israel to retreat completely?
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower. So at that point in time, American policy was not pro-Israel like it is today. That changed a little bit even on, but mainly the whole process of changing around and this whole idea, this concept that Israel could even be an ally, that starts with Nixon, and you have Bush. The Republican presidents more than the Democratic presidents have been very pro, because they've been in favor of a strong foreign policy, a strong anti-communist foreign policy. But in my opinion, who went the furthest? Who was the greatest president for Israel?
Trump.
Trump, no comparison. No comparison. Good.
You're saying something about.
And how did the Jews repay him? How did the Jews repay Trump for everything?
Disinformation.
75%. 75% vote for Biden. That's an amazing thing. That's such an amazing thing. Go ahead. What do you want to
They
say?
said something about you said this U.S. government is pro-Israel, but unfortunately, we have America has a president that is distorted. They wanna put an embassy for the cousins over here on Grunk Street.
On our street,
For which cousins?
Our cousins from the
the
Arabs.
Arabs.
Are you serious?
Specifically,
They
just
want
for
to
that.
go, they want to do, they
It's
want
on the grunt, opposite the park.
God
across
said
the
no.
street.
God said no,
We
but
were
you know,
demonstrating
U.S.
3 times
has
there.
twisting power.
And you know how many Israelis
I
make
agree with you. When I say, I'm saying, not under this president, not under the Democrats have become enemies of Israel. They're far left party, and they control. The ones who, like I just made the point, and Jews can't appreciate this. Look at again. I mean, what you know why Trump was so pro-Israel? Was he so pro-Israel because he loved the Jews?
Isn't it because his daughter converted?
No, he
His
didn't
father.
function.
His father.
What was the political? No, well, that's true, but the main political motivation, if there was a was the evangelical Christians. They're strong. Are you kidding? There's millions. There are much more Christians that support Israel vociferously than there are Jews. And he had Hagee, have you heard of Hagee? He's that big evangelical preacher in
I
Texas.
saw him give a $5 million check.
He's a great speaker. Whenever there's a pressure on Israel, they come in, they are more, you ever see his church, Hagee's church? It looks like a shul. He's got Israeli flags all over the place, and he's a real chassid. He's a real Zionistic chassid.
President.
Think so?
For his various reasons.
He used to have Rabbi Scheinberg, Orthodox synagogue.
Yeah,
Rabbi, come speak at the
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, there's always, as I said,
It's church.
Trump didn't do this simply because he likes Jews. He does like Jews, etc., etc. But these were such major moves, recognizing Yerushalayim, the embassy, and recognizing Golan Heights. And what are some of the other things that he's done? I can't even remember anymore.
Against Iran.
I know.
Iran, breaking the Iran deal, and cutting off the PLO and cutting off the funds. Everything. You'd think he was like this guy, David
Building a
Friedman.
wall.
David Friedman, his ambassador, is basically like a Jewish. He is a Jewish guy. I mean, who would imagine? He's 100% pro-Israel, but David Friedman.
He's a guy.
He supports the yeshivas in Beidel.
But
Who would appoint him to be an American
But there were
ambassador
3
to Israel?
demonstrations against the consulate on the ground over here. And over the 3 demonstrations, maybe 300 Jews showed up. Over the 3.
That's an
This is a
unfortunate.
pretty major thing, and very few people showed up.
That's a very, very
Jewish.
unfortunate. This is something nobody wrote. I wrote about. I wrote a letter to the Jerusalem Post after the election about Hakarat HaTov. Hakarat HaTov means to recognize and appreciate the good. And I said, look at all the good that Trump has done for Jews and that he's done for Israel, and look at the way Jews respond to that.
They didn't like the way you talked.
I don't care. I don't care.
Israel did like.
Even if you don't like him, you have an obligation. If somebody does you a good, a tov, and you don't like the person, nevertheless you have a chiyuv, you have an obligation to appreciate, to thank the person, and so on and so forth. I had conversations, not personal, I'm not bragging. I had conversations with Trump, not just me and him, because part of the RCA, Rabbinical Council of America. So they would arrange every year before Rosh Hashanah a joint, group phone call with the president, Obama too, and he was so you had to sign up and you can't, all right. So I was on 2 conversations when Trump was the president, and let me tell you, he's talking to a bunch of rabbis. Not as many as should be, because a lot of the rabbis are too holy. Oh, no, we can't, Trump, we can't talk to him. I thought, we have a chiyuv, he's the president, you have to show respect. And I forget the name of this rabbi. He's, the EULA, the Holocaust Memorial thing in California. Rabbi Heyer, I think it was Rabbi Heyer. Rabbi Heyer, he's done a heck of a lot. Okay, so he was sort of like the host, like the MC. And he's thanking Mr. President for everything you've done. Even one year we had Alan Dershowitz, who was a Democrat. And he was pro-Trump. He was thanking him because look at all he's done for
But he
Israel.
voted for Obama.
Well, he didn't run against Trump. So Rabbi Heyer says, so tell us, Mr. President, what can we do for you? You've done so much for us. What can we do for you? He says, you can vote for me. You can vote for me. I guess that's how it's going. He said, look what I've done. I said, I get 25% of the Jewish vote. But he's straight. He just, whatever's on it. He doesn't.
Businessman.
He talks straight. And he really gave it to them. He says, what? He gave it to the Catholics too. They only voted 50% for him. And that was ridiculous in his mind, considering what he did for them. But the Jews, for whom he did more than any other group, and they give him back 25% vote. That is such a weakness of the Jewish character. It really is something
the
to talk
Jews
about.
support the gays and critical rights theory. That's what the Jews worship.
But why? What about your own self-interest? What about your own self-preservation?
It's
Doesn't that
called
come first?
assimilation.
Chayecha
That's how
kodmin.
they think they
This is
could
the
survive.
80%.
Your own life, the 80%. Your own life comes first. First comes yourself. Afterwards, you can say he's trying to save others. Israel goes all over the world. The earthquakes, fine, that's a big mitzvah, fine.
They think it's through assimilating.
What's to assimilate?
The Jews think that by becoming more non-Jewish, that's their key to survival.
That's the tragedy. That's what I wanted to get to. That's a very important point. That is the tragedy of Jewish existence, that the Jews don't want to be Jews. They don't want to be Jews. They chafe under it. They want to be universalists. They want. I'm saying that's the truth, though.
That's the way the government right now
I just
is.
had to add that.
Chas v'shalom is right, but unfortunately, it's a reality. And here's the point that I wanted to make. You see, the fact that you have Yom HaShoah, you have a Shoah. And it's not just the Shoah, it's all that preceded the Shoah. Throughout history, you have the pogroms, okay, you have the Inquisitions, you have all of the anti-Semitism, all the torturing of the Jews, the suffering of the Jews, which is culminated by the Shoah, okay? Means that the Jews have paid a price. And to the extent that the Shoah contributes to establishing Israel, that's a tremendous price tag. How many lives have to be sacrificed, korbanos, in order to have the state? Then you add on the 29,000 of after the state. In other words, the korbanos, the sacrifices, didn't stop just with the establishment of the state. It goes on because in every generation they arise against us and destroy us. Jews can't get that. It says it in the Haggadah. In every generation they arise against us. And that's true. You see it happening over here, and now it spreads throughout the world. Whoever thought that in contemporary world, the anti-Semitic party, in a major Western country, the anti-Semitic party would be the second in terms of votes. Would come that close. Le Pen.
Stop using the term anti-Semitism. It was invented by a German Jew hater to racialize Judaism.
Okay.
And every time you see it in print, and you know it's true, it's always followed by a comma, Jew hatred.
Okay, Jew
Let's
hatred.
abort the term and make a promise to ourselves.
So what do you want to use instead?
Jew haters.
Jew haters. Okay, fine. I'm not arguing with that. Okay? So look how close. There was a real worry, a last-minute thing. Macron was able to win. But if Macron doesn't win, then you have Le Pen. Le Pen is Jew-hating. It's an amazing thing. So it's back. The anti-Semitism that plagued us is back.
Her father was anti-Jew. She is not.
She's not?
No.
So why is she head of that party?
No, she's pretty bad.
She's head of that party, then they renounced the
But
party.
she is not anti-Semitic. Her father was very anti-Semitic. She's not.
How can you not and be head of an anti-Semitic party?
It's not an anti-Semitic party. It's an anti-Islamic party.
Stop using the term.
It's an anti-Islamic party.
She should have spoken out more strongly pro-Jewish, then that would have...
No, she spoke against Islam, not against Jews. She never spoke against Jews. Her father did. She didn't.
Well, she didn't do enough to get rid of that
A lot
image.
of Jews gave her the vote.
Yes?
Yes.
Well, I don't know enough about that specifically. I just know that the father and the party in general has always been regarded. Yeah.
There's a Beit Knesset here in Jerusalem that on Shabbos, whenever everyone that gets an aliyah gives a Mishnah Be'er to Donald Trump.
Oh, really?
Right.
Wow.
Which shul is that?
Corina.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, the thing is like this, though. You see, what should be our takeaway? What should be our takeaway about Yom HaAtzmaut? Okay?
No compromise with an intractable enemy.
Okay.
And we have to start destroying their mosques.
Okay, one second.
That's what we should do. That's a takeaway.
One second.
Can they do it to our synagogues?
Hold on, give me a
They
second.
can, but we can't.
Let me just give you my take, please.
They can, but we can't.
See, the Rambam says, the question is Yom HaAtzmaut, the fact that the Jews obtained independence, is that a tremendous Jewish value? Independence. So the Rambam says like this. This is in Hilchos, the laws pertaining to Hanukkah. Okay? So the Rambam lists all the various things that took place, the miracles of Hanukkah. And he tells you the story that the Greeks took away their freedom and didn't allow them to do mitzvos, and then it got worse. They started taking away their money, and then they took their daughters, and then they went into the Beis HaMikdash, and they did terrible, terrible things in the Beis HaMikdash, and they made life miserable for them, okay, and put them under great pressure, until God, the God of our fathers, had mercy on the Jews, and God saved them from their hands. So first of all, whenever there's a Yeshua, we have to give credit to Hashem. And the sons of the Chashmonaim, who were the Kohanim, overpowered the Greeks and killed them. And saved Israel from their hands, the hands of the Greeks. And then they established a king from the Kohanim, which the Rambam holds is a good thing. Then it says like this, listen carefully, V'chazra malchus liYisrael. And dominion, okay, shilton, returned to Israel, Yaser al Masayim Shana, for more than 200 years. The Churban Hasheni, until the destruction of the Churban. So what is he saying over there? He's listing dominion, atzma'ut, political power in the land of Israel. That's one of the things you have to give credit for. Apparently, and even though it was only 200 years, and even though many of the kings in the Hashmonite period were corrupt, it wasn't perfect. See, that's an answer to those people who criticize Israel because it's not perfect. Oh, the government is this, the guy it's not from. Yeah, but the very fact that you're able to exercise political, governmental control in the land of Israel is itself a good thing.
We don't use the term the West Bank. We don't use the term settler colonialist. It's our land.
Let me finish. I'm sorry? What are you asking me?
No, if we're not angry.
This is the Rambam, the Mishnah.
There's nothing to smile at.
Hilchos Megillah. Shh, gentlemen, please, let me finish. Hilchos Megillah v'Chanukah, Perik Shlishi. Third Perik, first halacha. Now I want to say it like this, that this is a reason to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut because after a lapse of a couple of thousand years, sovereignty, okay, what the Rambam is talking about has returned to the Jewish people in the land of Israel. Is that a good thing or is it not a good thing? It's an opportunity. And this is exactly what the way the Lubavitcher Rebbe characterized it. It's his damnut. It's a chance. It's an opportunity. That means that you have a chance in your own land to establish a Medina in accordance with the Torah principles. Not Atzma'ut is not an end in itself. Just like we're going to be celebrating Shavuot. And Shavuot it doesn't have its own character. Shavuot doesn't have its own date. What's Shavuot? Even though it comes out on the 6th of Iyar. I'm sorry, what's it? Was I right? No, Iyar is now, right? Sivan, right? Sivan.
Shavuot is 6th of Sivan.
It's the 6th of Sivan, correct. Yeah. But that date is not listed in the Torah. It's really what it is. It's exactly. It's 7 weeks. It's 7 weeks. The date is 7 weeks after Pesach. Why is that? See, because it's the completion of Pesach. Because Pesach is Exodus, is freedom from enslavement. But the freedom of enslavement doesn't have a real purpose until you have Sinai. It wasn't an end in itself. The purpose of the Exodus was not so that the Jews should not be slaves in Mitzrayim. That was not the purpose. The purpose was to go to Sinai and become a new nation. A mamleches kohanim v'gai kadosh, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Without that, then you have just freedom. That freedom is the same freedom somebody in America has, which is a freedom to just live according to your emotions.
And then Bennett closes the Temple Mount to the Jews. To live according to your own whims. That's not the idea of the Torah. The idea of Atzmaut, it has to be sanctified. That's the message that we have to strive, not just to be free, but to be free in order to fulfill the true tafkid, the true purpose of the Jewish people, which is to be a mamlechas kohanim v'gai kadosh. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much.